What's up, everyone? I hope you're all doing well today. Today on this unusual Monday live stream, I've got a very special guest, Mr. Brandon Gowton from SBNation NFL and Bleeding Green Nation. He's kind of new into whiskey, so we're going to do a little whiskey tasting for beginners, and we're going to talk a little NFL football. So with that, let me go ahead and invite him into the conversation. Hey, Brandon, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, Tim?
It's going well. It's going well. Thank you for taking the time to join me here tonight. I'm really looking forward to sharing some whiskey with you and maybe talk a little football.
Likewise, it's overdue.
Yeah,
you had RJ on here. Did Stats come on here at one point too? I feel like
so I did a whiskey tasting with RJ and Stats off Instagram Live. We did it behind the scenes, and then I had RJ come back. So
what is this? Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
I know. But in his defense, I haven't invited him back on for Instagram Live, but his invitation will be coming, so he won't feel left out should he want to join here.
Nice.
Yes. So, first, before we jump into the whiskey and the conversation, let's first hear a little bit about you and your background. I mentioned you're part of SBNation or SBNation NFL and Bleeding Green Nation. So how did you get into that, and what's your background with football and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I just want to give a big shout out to BGN here at the start.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, growing up, let's put this back in, I graduated 2010 high school.
Okay.
Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Went to the College of New Jersey for a semester, not even a month, basically. Withdrew because I wasn't really feeling it there. So I'm kind of just stuck in not knowing what I want to do. At the same time, I had come across BGN, Bleeding Green Nation, at the end of my high school tenure, and was just a member of the site. Didn't even really comment for a full year. Kind of just laid in the weeds. I know a lot of people still do that with BGN. They kind of just read the site but don't really hop into the comments. Finally dove in, was getting involved there, getting more involved talking about the Eagles on Twitter, and really it just culminated into me wanting to write for the site.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of it was hard to get the main guy's attention because there's a lot of people who want to write about the Eagles, as you can imagine. So
absolutely.
I actually started by hopping on, thanks to Michael Levin, Liberty Ballers of the Sixers, and was writing about them, and kind of used that as a way to get my foot in the door at SB Nation and then move over to Bleeding Green Nation eventually and be a writer there. And I was just fortunate enough to kind of be on staff when the main guy, Jason Brewer, at the time stepped down, and I was kind of the logical replacement there. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. And how long have you been with them? How long have you been doing the podcasts for?
Yeah, so it's funny. We started BGN Radio back in October 2013, not even at the beginning of the season. And it's crazy because there really weren't Eagles podcasts around back then. There was one called Eagles Fancast. They were kind of I recognize them as the OGs of Eagles podcasting, but they didn't even do theirs. I think they did theirs a little bit in the season, but they wouldn't even do off-season stuff. So we were the first ones to really kind of do it as often as we did, and now there's a billion Eagles podcasts. But yeah, since 2013.
No, then that's awesome, and I'm obviously a big Eagles fan. You see my DMs from the past of breaking down all these random things and whatnot. You're probably who is this random whiskey guy?
He goes deep, listeners. He goes deep into it.
So my background is I'm an actuary by my day job, so I look at data all the time. So I do what I call a coffee break analysis. I'll put my insurance data aside, and I'll just pull up some football reference stats, and I'll be does this actually make sense? And I'll crunch some numbers with it, and I'll just send you a quick message, or a fairly extensive message, we'll say. And you're probably I don't trust this guy. What is he doing here? Let's not get into these numbers.
I like it, man. People say sometimes, oh, you must be tired of talking about this. Not really. If someone wants to talk to me about it, let's talk about it. I do this because I like it. Let's chop it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what everybody should aspire to in their career, is to find a job that you're so passionate for that you're willing to just talk about it and at any time, whether you're on the job or not. So that's really cool. Do you see yourself do you see yourself doing this? Like, is this your ultimate goal? You want to stay here? Not to make this into an interview question, but like, what's your ideal job in the NFL?
No, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice gig, so I wouldn't mind holding on to it for a bit. I think it's kind of the media world is interesting because it's not really about like doing one thing. Like I mean, like there's just so much going on. Like we mentioned RJ here. Like obviously, he thinks of himself as a blogger, as a podcaster, but he's like getting into TikTok now. So like that's there's a whole new frontier with that and YouTube stuff and Twitch and everything. So I think part of it's always expanding the horizons. I know I would like to get more into radio, but not like I don't want to be like Angelo Cataldi. I don't want it to be like my main thing.
Yeah.
But I would like to kind of like just do more radio stuff and kind of have that as a side thing. Not to compare myself to the great Ranger by any means because I can't hold a candle to that guy. But like he kind of did everything, TV, writing. Like I'd kind of like to expand into some other things too, in addition to what I'm doing.
First, what is your whiskey experience? How do you drink it a lot? Is this something you kind of go to? Like, what's your background in it?
I'm a novice here, Tim. I will say one time, a couple years ago, I think it was, Royal Crown emailed me. I think in part because we had done some like promos for them with Chris Long and Brian Westbrook.
Yeah.
They reached out and were like, "Hey, would you like a bottle?" And I was like, "Sure."
Yeah.
So they sent me one. And, it was really good. And I mean, I don't know a ton about it. The only one thing I did learn is someone taught me there's a difference between whiskey without the K, without the E, and one with the E. So that's and I like one of them is from, I guess the one's Canadian and one isn't. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's just spelling differences. In the United States, whiskey is spelled with an E. Ireland is spelled with an E. Scotland is spelled without the E. Japan is spelled without the E. So it's it's just
Gotcha.
It's just the the origins of where they come from. And I think originally whiskey was spelled without the E, but in order for Irish whiskey to kind of differentiate itself from Scotch whiskey, they added the E to it. So that's kind of where that history comes from. So Crown Royal is the Canadian whiskey, obviously. Tonight we have 3 styles of whiskey. We have single malt Scotch whiskey, Irish pot still whiskey, and then a American bourbon. Just to let the audience know what we're trying tonight. And these are high ABV drinks, so if you ever feel like you need to stop, let me know. if you had a little too much to consume. But I've got the Tomatin Dualchas here, which is a
cool
single malt from Tomatin. Then we've got the Glengoyne 10-year-old right here.
Nice.
Another single malt Scotch whiskey. Then we're going to go with the Irish pot still whiskey, which is a 12-year-old right here, Redbreast.
Okay, the Redbreast. Gotcha.
Then we're going to go to a peated Scotch whiskey, which we'll get to what that means shortly, with the Lagavulin 16. I don't know if are you familiar with the TV show Parks and Recreation?
Of course, yeah.
So this was Ron Swanson's drink of choice, was the Lagavulin.
Oh.
And then we'll end with the bourbon, the Four Roses single barrel bourbon. All right, so I don't know if you took my advice. Your co-hosts did not when I suggested getting a Glencairn glass, which looks like this, or any tulip shape. All right, so you're already one step ahead of them. I don't think they're watching right now, but we'll definitely reach out to them afterwards and let them know that you stepped up your game. So I appreciate the effort you're putting in. And the first one we'll start off with is the Tomatin Dualchas. This is bottled at 43% ABV, and that's relatively low for a Scotch whiskey, especially as you kind of dig your feet in there a little bit more and start getting more into it. But this is basically a bare bones Scotch. This is why I wanted to choose it as the first one. It's aged in ex-bourbon barrels and virgin oak barrels. So what that means is they distill the spirit, and they fill some of that spirit in barrels that once held bourbon, and they fill some of it into barrels that never held any liquid before, and then they kind of blend them together. And this gives you a very gentle, approachable whiskey that hopefully you'll find okay. But there is actually a right way to drinking whiskey. It's not something you just take a shot of and fill up your sinuses. So what I usually suggest is you pour a little bit on your palate, you kind of once it's in your mouth, and this is, some people get a little confused by this. I always exhale a little bit to let some of those alcohol vapors get out of my mouth, and then you kind of let it roll around your palate a little bit, and that kind of coats it. The first sip is always the harshest. It's always going to taste a little more alcoholic. It's always going to be a little bit more stringent. And then each subsequent sip will start tasting a little bit sweeter, and you'll start getting some of those cask characteristics, be it vanillas or brown sugars, and some of that gentle, oak influence that you'll get from this one. So for the Tomatin Dualchas, the first thing we'll do is we'll pour that one. And when you're going to nose it, it's not a wine, so you don't like stick your nose in there and breathe in deep, because then your nose hairs are just singed from its high ABV. You kind of hold a little bit further away from your nose. I usually breathe in through my nose and my mouth at the same time, and that cuts down on the alcohol smell too. And you can kind of get some of those cask characteristics, like I mentioned. What do you smell? What
smell like again, total novice here. So
yeah, no, there's no wrong answer. There's
almost like a caramel kind of like, or is like
that is a very common characteristic for whiskey. So that's exactly what you'd be smelling. And so again, like I said, you small sips, kind of let it roll around your palate, get some of those alcohol vapors out of your mouth, and then when you swallow it, you should actually taste the actual whiskey and not so much the alcohol burn.
Actually, the more that sits with me, I kind of like it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about whiskey, is the more it sits with you. And once your palate acclimates to that high ABV, that's when you really start to click with it. And then each subsequent dram that we have tonight will just taste that much better.
So what made you pick these? I guess let me turn it around on you. And why did these ones?
So the reason I picked these 5 samples was because I was looking for low ABV whiskey. So even though this is strong for you, these are actually lower, between 40 and 43%, except for the bourbon, which is at 50%. But we'll get there last. And then I wanted to illustrate different cask influences. So this one that we're having here has that ex-bourbon, virgin oak cask influence. Pretty straightforward. Get some caramel, some vanilla, some maybe a couple like some apples or tropical fruits. Then the Glengoyne 10, which would be the next one we'll have, it's influence in sherry casks. So those are casks that once held sherry wine. What the sherry wine kind of does is give you some of those dark fruit flavors, some raisins and prunes, and some dark chocolate. So it's just kind of a comparing how casks influence the flavor of whiskey. And they're all relatively young for the most part. I mean, the Dualchas is probably around 6 to 8 years old. It's there's no age on the bottle, but that's typically how old it is. Then the Glengoyne 10 is 10 years old, and the Redbreast is 12. So, that's kind of what I was going for. And then the Redbreast, it's an Irish whiskey. So I figured we could talk a little bit about the difference between a single pot still Irish whiskey and a single malt Scotch whiskey. And then Lagavulin, that's where you get that smoky peat, the one that Ron Swanson had. And then bourbon is like a bold, sweet cherries, vanillas, brown sugars. So that's a completely different whiskey profile. So it's kind of to illustrate the diverse gamut of flavors that whiskey has to offer. And this is just a drop in the bucket compared to what other options are out there. All right, so let's jump into the next one then. That'll be the Glengoyne 10-year-old.
Cool.
So again, this is another single malt Scotch whiskey, and you might be wondering, what is a single malt? Do you know the difference between a blend and a single malt and whatnot?
I do not.
All right, so a blended malt Scotch whiskey are whiskeys that are blended together from different distilleries in Scotland. If a whiskey is made entirely of malted barley and comes from a single distillery, and a few other parameters that are less interesting, then it's called a single malt Scotch whiskey. So the Glengoyne 10, as well as the Tomatin, both came from the distilleries that are on the bottle.
Gotcha.
And again, this one is influenced in sherry casks. So let me know if you can tell any difference between it.
Ooh, yeah, definitely the taste. Not so much the smell, definitely the taste. The taste is a little more like smoother to me. Yeah, it's like a little more pleasant up front to me.
All right, yeah. Yeah, this one it does seem a little more tame. That's probably from the sherry influence. I get definitely some more of those, like kind of raisiny, maybe a little dark chocolate into it. So it's a little bit more complex, I would say.
Let's do another sip here. Yeah, on that exhale, like you were saying, I just the flavor in my mouth instantly was like almost like a chocolate kind of like it was like a darker kind of that kind of like
Yeah.
dark sweet flavor.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I always recommend people, especially new into whiskey, exhale a little bit, because when you don't taste that strong alcohol flavor, you can really start tasting those cask characteristics, and it does make a big difference.
I like this better, definitely. This is more popular. This is more favorable to me, the Glengoyne, than the Tomatin.
And I do have a couple of questions that were sent in.
Sure.
That people wanted to answer from a Mr. RJ Ochoa.
What a fraud.
He would like to know, what was your favorite part about having your profile picture be blogging the boys last year? What was your favorite part about that?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite part is that it's probably the highlight of the Cowboys season for RJ and their fans not actually winning anything meaningful, but me changing my avatar. I don't regret it. Like, the Eagles got off to a decent start last year. Obviously, they beat the Falcons, and then the 49ers game was kind of close.
Yeah.
I at the time, it seemed reasonable to me that they could go down to Dallas and it would be like a game. It would be competitive at least, and I was wrong. I was very wrong about that.
Yeah.
But like the information I had going into the game, I thought it was going to be a game, so I don't regret it.
And Stats on Fire also has a question for you. He wants to know what it's like getting to host a show with Stats on Fire.
Well, I kind of want to bring. He's not watching this probably, but I need to bring this up. But I want to bring this up to him because he called me out. So RJ,
today's podcast.
Did you hear about this?
I did. He called you out on Twitter.
I like, what is this? He's calling me out. Well, on the podcast, the Look Ahead last NFL show, if people want to check that out for not just Eagles coverage but league-wide coverage. He was calling me out for like live tweeting from OTAs. My thing with that is like, I get how it can be annoying and that you can get taken out of context, but like, here's how I view it, Tim. Like, so if I knew if I wasn't there at practice, I would die to be there at practice. Like that, there's nowhere I'd rather be. And I know a lot of Eagles fans probably feel the same way. Like if they could be there, they'd want to. So my job, in my eyes, is to make the people feel like they're there. Yeah. So, and if you don't have the ability to be like a Jalen Hurts bad throw is not like the end of the season, well then that's on you. That's on me. Yeah.
No, and I as an Eagles fan, I actually do like the play-by-plays. I mean, yes, it is relatively meaningless in the grand scheme of things.
Sure.
When you're in the boring part of the season and you're just
right. What else is going on? There's
exactly. You just want information, and I when I know Bleeding Green Nation is covering an OTA or whatever, I always look it up at the end of the day and see what the updates were. How did Jalen Hurts do? How did the other players do? Did anybody stand out? I find that stuff interesting, and it's just a small piece to the puzzle, but it's still something that, makes the offseason a little more interesting. So I will, his stats take on that, I will agree with 100%.
Well, and why? Like, what the heck? Like, we usually do our Tuesday show, the Oddcast on the SBNation NFL show. We haven't been doing it, so we kind of scaled back across the board, and that's honestly fine.
Yeah.
We haven't taken a break since we started that show at like fall 2020, so it's nice to actually get like a little bit of a break. I missed one episode out of the whole year last year, so every single week. So it's nice to finally get a little bit of a break with that. And I'll still be on the look ahead at points. So, but it's just funny. It's like, you think this guy has your back, and then he stabs you in the back. You can't trust a guy who's not going to get the Glencairn class. You just can't do that.
That's the big question. Are you, if you had to say one way or the other, is he the long-term answer or no?
I would say it's more likely that he isn't. I've not ruled out hope for him. I think my opinion on Jalen Hurts kind of gets mischaracterized in that, like, because I don't think he is the answer, and I'm not like all aboard that I'm a hater. I'm really not. I like him. I think he's a likable dude. He has all the intangibles. I like his mobility because that's great in a pinch. You need him to pick up 4 yards on third or on 4th and 3 or 3rd and 3. He can get it for you. But doesn't really use the middle of the field. He has the slowest release in the NFL in each of the past 2 seasons. Like, he has to process faster, and maybe he will this year as he gets older and more advanced. Again, I'm not ruling out the hope for him.
Yeah.
But he has to make significant strides, and I just think even if he does, you're still behind the 8 ball in terms of when you compare to Justin Herbert and Mahomes and Josh Allen. Those guys are just freak talents, and I don't think Jalen Hurts has that. And so I think Jalen Hurts can be a top 12-ish, 15-ish starter, but that's not where you want to be. in theory, like that sounds nice because okay, he's not bad, but like you need to be aiming higher because you're paying top of the market money for like a middling guy. Like I just don't think the Eagles are going to do that, and I don't want to do that.
No, and it's a lot easier to once you have that great guy in place to win than have an okay guy in place and just have the right piece. All the other variables add up, which is much harder because you have more variables. But yeah, I mean, just from an outsider's point of view, he's one of my favorite people on the team. But from year one to year two, I didn't, when he was relied on to pass, I didn't see a huge upgrade from his first year to his second year and throwing the football, and that's obviously an issue with a quarterback. And is that something that can really be improved from that next year? So there will be improvements, but like you said, is it going to propel him up to like a top 6 or 7 quarterback in the NFL? I don't know. That's a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, the offense got better last year when they took the ball out of his hands. That's like the harsh reality of it. Yeah, like I mean, that's like at a very basic level, that's what happened. They were passing the ball a ton early in the season, didn't work out. Now, of course, like didn't have the best receivers in terms of Devontae Smith and not much else. I like Quez Watkins, but Rager is a negative out there. Yeah. So now you have AJ Brown, you have Devontae Smith year 2, Dallas Goedert. You throw Zach Pascal, whatever, Quez Watkins year 3 in the mix. Like there's enough for Hurts to work with now where he should take a significant step forward.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And but like you said, if he can't see the field and process quickly enough, it's it doesn't really matter. If AJ Brown gets open, but he throws the ball second too late, then it doesn't make a difference. So we'll see. Hopefully he can make that jump. But they got Carson Strong in the wings. You wait in the wings. Yeah, if his bionic knee can hold up, maybe. I saw that link that you posted.
Yeah.
That's somebody said he could have franchise potential. So we'll see.
Well, it's funny. Like the guy who said that isn't just like someone throwing stuff against the wall to see if it sticks. Like that's Matt Waldman, and I don't know if you're familiar, but Matt Waldman's like a big tape grinder guy. It doesn't mean he's right about everything, but he watches like maybe more film, or at least one of those guys who watches like more film than almost anyone else. So that he said that is like a little interesting. And again, his belief is based on like the health of Carson Strong's knee being good, and he doesn't know anything about that. So that could be a moot point. But just based on if he is healthy, just based on the film that he saw, he was intrigued. So probably won't be anything, but it's nice to have like that scratch off in your back pocket.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The part of what makes football fun is that the hope of that unknown prospect that'll excel, and the crazy knee issue that he has is unprecedented. I mean, he had that weird, I don't know if it was like a genetic disorder or something with his knee that got repaired, and there's really been no long-term studies done on how that can hold up under football. So you never know what will happen. So it was definitely worth the gamble by the Eagles.
For sure.
All right, so let's jump into dram number 3. So you're finished with your Glengoyne. You're ready for the Redbreast 12.
Let's go for it.
All right, so Redbreast 12. This is an Irish single pot still whiskey. And so a single pot still whiskey is similar to a single malt, but they use both malted and unmalted barley in the distillation process. And that let me know if you can smell or taste any differences between this one and the Scotch.
Yeah. Already instantly just a different smell. Like you said, like that kind of that barley, like a wheat or some kind of like that kind of.
Yeah, a little more grassy, a little fresher smelling.
Yeah.
This one's also aged in a combination of bourbon, ex-bourbon, and ex-sherry cask. So you get 2 of those flavor profiles mixed together. And this is bottled at 40%. So it's the lowest ABV of tonight.
Okay. I don't know how valuable of a comparison this is, but the thing that strikes me is like it reminds me of like an IPA. Like it's like it's like that the intensity of that like hoppiness, like that kind of or like whatever you said, like a barley, like that, like whatever that intent, like that kind of realm. Yeah, I don't like that one as much in the middle. Like the middle, it didn't sit. I like that that flavor as much.
So you don't like the Irish pot still profile as much as the Glengoyne?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the difference.
Yeah. OMG Becky with the good hair. She wants to know who do you hate more, Tom Brady or the Cowboys?
Wow. I mean, it's the Cowboys. Like, for as much as I hate Tom Brady, I'll always talk about how I saw him in person practice against the Eagles in 2013 in a joint training camp practice.
Yeah.
And, going into that practice, like that week, I didn't like think twice about it. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's Tom Brady. It's good. Like I
Yeah.
didn't really, but then I saw him be really good in practice,
Yeah.
and it's just like it was on another level that I could never have anticipated how precise he was with every single pass in
Hmm.
practice. He was just like dominating out there. He would have, like these no-name receivers going against Eagles starting quarterbacks, and not that the Eagles quarterbacks were like great at that time. You're talking about Kerry Williams and Bradley Fletcher, but still, like the receivers that he was working with were like nobodies. They weren't
Yeah.
even like players making the Patriots roster, and it didn't matter. Like he was just so precise. It was crazy. I'm not a Tom Brady fan by any means, but I can at least acknowledge like he is like I've never seen that before. It's like alien. It's a different realm. So like I hate him. Obviously, he sucks in terms of like likability and a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. But he is talented. I can at least give
Yeah.
him that. Whereas the Cowboys are just total frauds who, choke every year.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Kind of, Tom Brady has kind of been restoring his image a little bit since he's moved away from the Patriots. He's been a lot more open on social media and kind of, the humorous side of Tom Brady. I'm actually a Tom Brady fan, one of the few out there
Oh,
who are non-Patriots Bucks fans. But just because I appreciate greatness, like we all love like Michael Phelps, Usain Bolt, Michael Jordan, all these great athletes. So I always take the stance of, well, we have Tom Brady in real time. We can appreciate his greatness and all of his preparation and every little thing that he puts into his game. And for me, that's very admirable. That's why I like Tom Brady. Just, he is football. Like every little detail is so perfect and thought out for him. And that's just such a cool thing for me.
the thing I like the most about Tom Brady is obviously the Eagles beating him in Super
Of
Bowl
course.
52 with Brandon
Yes.
Graham of all people, a fellow Michigan alumnus, strip sacking him. So
Yeah.
that is easily my best moment in football ever. Like it's funny, like it wasn't even the end of the game, officially. Like obviously the Hail Mary, but like that was not it for me. Like that the moment Tom Brady is strip sacked by Brandon Graham, like that was the Eagles won the Super Bowl in that
Yeah.
moment, and I'll never forget that.
Were you at the stadium covering it?
I was at US Bank Stadium watching in person from the stands, looking down at the end zone. So the far end zone was the one like where the Philly special took place. So
Yeah.
the Zach Ertz touchdown at the end of the game was the one. I think the Alshon Jeffrey touchdown too. Those happened like in my end zone, the one that was closer to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's incredible that you got to experience the energy and everything in person. That's so cool.
The picture, I believe, by the way, is on my Instagram here. So if you look at my profile, there's a picture of my view, basically, from where I was. So yeah, you can scroll back.
All right, you ready to jump into the fourth whiskey?
Yes.
All right. So this one is going to be completely different from everything we've had tonight. And this one is, like I said, Ron Swanson's whiskey of choice. So yeah, when you nose it, you'll immediately be able to tell why this is different.
Looking forward to this one. Also intimidated. Ron Swanson, very intimidating.
Yes. So are you familiar with what peated whiskey is?
No, but yeah, I can tell the smell is definitely different.
Yeah. So it's smoky, it's earthy,
Yes.
And so what peat moss is what makes the smell and the taste. And basically, when you're making whiskey, you dry the barley out, and you can either dry it with air, with heat, with whatever. When barley is dried by peat moss, which is basically decomposed earth that they dig up and throw into the furnace, it creates this aroma of the taste of this smoky, the earthiness. It could be, some people have some iodine in there, some medicinal characteristics. So for Lagavulin, you can definitely get some of that like bonfire smokiness to it.
Yeah, I like that. It's really nice, actually.
It's very appealing. Yeah, some people love it, some people hate it, but I'm a big fan of peat. So what do you think?
Ooh, I like that a lot.
All right,
that's good.
All right, this one does convert a lot of people into whiskey drinking. The Lagavulin 16. Unfortunately, this bottle in particular is getting more and more expensive as the days go on.
I can see why.
Yeah, so when I first got into whiskey, I could get this for around $65-ish to $70. Now it's hovering around $90 to $100. So it becomes a little more challenging to get these days.
That's a word. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so this is your favorite of the night.
Yeah, this is the favorite, at least so far. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, this is my favorite of tonight's lineup too. It's the oldest one we have, 16 years old, so there's a little bit more depth to it in that sense. Again, this is mostly ex-bourbon cask, so it's that standard, traditional, no frills cask type, and then that peat smoke integrates with it so well. I do have another question that was sent in earlier. Would you, and this is by HQB.
Yes.
I'm assuming you know who this is.
Yes,
I don't understand the context of the question, but would you ever consider swimming in a pool without goggles?
I would not swim in the pool without goggles, especially ones with like the nose piece, because here's the deal. I'm not really good at having like water up my nose. I just can't do it. It's one of those things I'm not good at it. I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to it. It's just, I get like really anxious. You don't want to be anxious in a pool,
No.
So yeah, it's not the place for that. So yeah, it's just like as a comfort thing. Do I look ridiculous? Absolutely. But look, I'm going to be underwater anyway. I'm not going to like be hanging out up top with that on all the time. If I'm hanging out up top, I would just take it off. But if I'm swimming underwater and everything, I got to have not just the eyes, but I need the nose piece as well. I don't need the snorkel. I'm not that ridiculous, but I got to have the nose thing.
Yeah, no, I think those are all very fair points. If you're prone to having water shot up your nose, or if you want to open your eyes up underwater, why not?
Oh yeah, I can't do that. No.
So I do have a couple of let's see how well you know the Eagles. Just a couple of questions.
Uh-oh.
And these are not something that you would know beforehand, other than just making kind of random guesses, because I used a little data here. So I looked at Pro Football References approximate value, AV. I just use that as like a hold-all number that can kind of indicate whether something is, whether a player is, good or above average or below average. And so what I did is I took the approximate value of all the Eagles draft picks since 2016. So when Howie took over from Chip Kelly.
Nice.
And I weighted it based on relative to the position in the draft they were drafted, so the first, second, third, fourth round through seventh round, and relative to the position that they play. So,
oh man,
what's the average? For example, what's the average approximate value for a quarterback? What's this quarterback's approximate value, and what's that relativity? And then what round were they drafted in versus what the average approximate value is for that round? So it gets a little complicated, a little abstract here. But my question is to you: Can you guess which player on the Eagles drafted by the Eagles since 2016, the best player relative to the position they play?
You really are an actuary.
Yeah, you can tell. This is my data side coming out.
So I'm looking for the best player relative to the position they play.
Yeah.
This is on the Eagles.
All on the Eagles. Yeah, we're just looking at the Eagles questions here. So of Howie Roseman's, let me see how many players he drafted.
Probably like
45 players. In the last.
Okay. So I have a shot.
All right.
Man, that's tough. My mind, like if I'm just going gut answer, my mind wants to go to Carson Wentz, but I feel like that would be too obvious. But my guess will be Carson Wentz to start.
No, Carson Wentz.
Okay.
He would have been. Let's see what his number is here. He is ranked 9th relative.
Oh wow. Okay, relative to position. So maybe it's an offensive lineman, but I'm just trying to think who would that be since 2016. The only one.
Just think about some of the best players who in the last several years.
Ooh.
Who are some of the best players that the Eagles have drafted?
Would it be a Dallas Goedert?
That is correct.
Oh.
He is the best player, and take it with a grain of salt, because obviously this is just using approximate value from Pro Football Reference. It's not definitive, so these are just for fun more than anything. All right, and this one's gonna be a little tricky because I know who you're gonna answer for this one.
Okay.
It's actually not the person that's going to immediately come to mind. Who is the best player the Eagles drafted relative to the round they were drafted in? And it's probably not the first person who's going to come to mind.
So you're going to say it's not Jordan Mailata?
That is correct. He's number 2. He's number 2.
Okay, so best relative to, and this is since 2016 still?
Since 2016.
That's a good question. Well, so I have another obvious answer, which is going to probably be my guess. So I'm going to file that away for a second and try to stall and think if I can think of anything else. I don't think I can. Is it Josh Sweat?
It is not, but I think he is high on this list.
He should be, because round 4 and defensive end, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's definitely above average for it, but it's another player that he's no longer on the team, so he might have slipped your memory. But think of a player who got drafted much later than people had thought he might have gotten drafted.
Oh, Jalen Mills.
That's correct, Jalen Mills. He's the answer. And between him and Jordan Mailata, it's between like a 0.05 or something. So really, they can be interchangeable on that top of that list. All right. So my last question is: one player is both the worst at relative to position and relative to the round they were picked in. Which one player is that? And it's not Jalen Reagor.
Well, that's who I was going to guess. Since 2016, the worst.
It'll be obvious once you think about who are some of the real duds.
And relative, is it JJ Arcega-Whiteside?
It is JJ Arcega-Whiteside. He is by far the worst relative to the position and round. Although now that he's tight end, maybe that changes the algorithm a little bit.
I don't think so. I saw him at OTAs the other day, and he does look a little bulked up, especially like in his legs and stuff. But he's still significantly smaller than the actual tight end. So I'll believe it when I see it. I said that a lot tonight, but that is how I roll.
The final sample of tonight, which is the bourbon, Four Roses. So obviously this is again completely different from everything that we've had tonight.
I'm intrigued by this one because you mentioned like fruity kind of.
Yeah, so this one's super bold. It's so bourbons are much sweeter than scotches. So you'll get some like brown sugars, vanillas, caramels.
That's up my alley. I'm biased towards that kind of thing.
Yeah, you maybe get a little fennel, a little cherry. And it's the highest ABV that we're having tonight. This is 50% ABV, so it's going to be a little bit spicier on the palate.
Okay.
And you'll be able to tell right from the nose. It's very different from what we've had.
Ooh, wait.
If you get any smoke in there, it's probably just the lingering peat from the Lagavulin. But, this should be able to wash most of that out.
I almost feel like the smell is not as strong to me. Like I can go in closer and I'm not getting burned.
Yeah. Bourbon, of course, is made in the United States. It has to be made with 51% corn. So the corn is much sweeter than barley. And then there could be some malted barley and rye in part of the mash bill. And then they're all have to be aged in virgin oak casks. So whereas Scotch whiskey can be filled 3, 4, 5 times, bourbons have to use fresh wood in order to age it. So that's where you get a lot of that richness. It's much more oaky. And then the corn just makes it much sweeter. It's a little more one-dimensional than a Scotch whiskey, but it's sweet and rich, and it's a very nice dessert dram, which is why we're having it last.
Yes, I like this probably second most. It's really, for me, it's a journey of flavors and like feels. Like I can't, like the beginning, what hits me at the beginning evolves into this secondary phase, and then it finishes like it's. I'm like, I don't almost know what I'm experiencing. I mean, there's like different levels of this that it's hitting.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about a bourbon is that, especially if you're going to ever do a lineup of multiple styles of whiskey, always save the bourbon for the end because it is much bolder and richer. You don't have to search as hard for the different flavors that you're getting.
Yeah, this finish is really strong for me. Like you said, the higher ABV, I'm definitely getting that. Yeah, without a doubt. And that might actually be part of the reason why you're liking it more. As you experience more whiskeys, you'll notice that higher ABV whiskeys tend to offer more complexity, some more experiences and flavors that these light ones that we had at the beginning don't really offer, which is, as a beginner, I wanted to offer you some light things that didn't burn your palate. But now that I can see what kind of styles you're liking in the future, I can set up a lineup that you might actually like the flavors profiles a little bit better. For sure. All right, so if you're at a restaurant, what is the best appetizer to order? What kind of restaurant? Like any restaurant. I know obviously it depends. Yeah. Okay, any appetizer. But, yeah. I think it's hard to go wrong with like a really good chips and salsa and guac too. Oh yeah, absolutely. What is the most unusual thing you've ever eaten? Ooh, that's a good one. So like I'm no Andrew Zimmerman? Something like that. Yeah. The bizarre foods guy. Like I couldn't watch that show. I love food shows, but I could not watch that show because sometimes that was like a bit too much for me. And I like
Yeah,
to eat when I'm watching a food show, and I'm like, this isn't working. I
a
can't
little
like
too much.
snack on Cheez-Its right now as I'm watching him eat like some kind of weird fish that is actually like poisonous until it's cooked in a certain way. Like I can't do that. So one of the weirder things I've had, it's probably pretty tame, is like an alligator sausage when I was down in New Orleans. But
All right.
that's different for me. I'm sure that's not a crazy answer, but that's something that pops to mind.
What is the best movie? What's your favorite film?
Shawshank Redemption. It's a kind of a basic answer. It used to be like the number one. I don't think it still is on IMDb.
I think it is. No, I think
Is
it
it
is.
still on IMDb?
Yeah.
It's so good. Every time I see it, I want to watch it. Like, I'm not a big repeat movie guy. I'm usually one and done. I just don't need to revisit because there's so many new things, especially
Yeah.
now. Like I don't have time to rewatch a movie, but Shawshank, if it's on, I'll make the exception. I'll rewatch it. It's really inspirational, uplifting. The acting
Yeah.
is great. So many great actors. It's a winner all the way around.
And similar to movies, what's the best show?
I mean, here's a really basic answer. I would say The Office. It's because it's just so timeless. But it's so basic that I feel bad for saying it, and I feel like I have to come up with something else. I'm not gonna go all time, but recently I have to say, like Stranger Things season 4,
It's good. Yeah.
it's excellent, and like so that came out the same day or like within a day, whatever, as Kenobi, on Disney Plus, and I started watching Stranger Things, and then I checked out to Kenobi because there's a lot of hype about it, and I like Star Wars. I'm not like necessarily the biggest Star Wars guy, but I like it. I'll check out all the stuff, and I was like, Kenobi. I know it's a different thing, but Kenobi can't hold a candle to Stranger Things. Season 4 was excellent. I mean, it's not over, but the part that they've released so far is just it's top notch.
Yeah, yeah. And V Fish here, who is my wife, is agreeing with you that The Office is great.
Nice.
Yeah, we were actually just watching The Office before I got on here. We were watching the Search, where they're looking for Michael Scott's replacement, which is a fun couple of episodes. Yeah, no, I agree. The season 4 of Stranger Things, I think, might be the best season so far, because just the intrigue of the I don't want to spoil anything, but just like the kind of the investigation, how everything kind of like it's like perfectly paced and everything. So I agree. Although I will say, in my opinion, it is not the best show on TV right now.
Wow.
For me, it is Better Call Saul. Season 6 is lights out good.
Okay.
Exceptional. Are you a fan of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul?
Yeah, I watched Breaking Bad. I watched like the beginning of Better Call Saul, but then I kind of just fell off of it.
That's common.
Yeah, I have to go back because I've heard really good things.
Yeah, because people, I think, when they went into Better Call Saul, they expected Breaking Bad, the fast-paced, adrenaline type of stuff. But the beauty of it is the slow burn and the slow evolution of Jimmy McGill, who is Saul Goodman, and how he turns into Saul Goodman through a bunch of insane, like realistic but very interesting events. It's definitely a show that you have to like really pay attention to the dialogue and the nuances of the storyline. It's so well done, and season 6 is sort of like Stranger Things season 4 is really taking it up to the next level. It's exceptional. So, as the good, bad, and the ugly is on my short list, Better Call Saul should be on your short list. But like you said,
Yes.
There's so many shows out there to watch, it's hard to keep track of all of them.
Somehow RJ is like watching every show and then like asking me, and like he's doing like every pop culture thing. I'm like, where are you getting this time? Like,
I wonder the same thing, because he does talk about all these movies and films that he's watching. It's like, man, he is a man who lives like has 48 hours in a day. He can do it all. It's pretty impressive.
He's like a content machine in terms of both consuming and producing.
So last question is, if now that you're a whiskey enthusiast, if you were going to share a dram of whiskey or a nice meal, say, with 4 famous people that are alive, are you picking?
That's a good one. So I probably wouldn't pick like any Eagles players, which is kind of, I don't know. It's just like, I get to, it's weird. I get to interact with them. So not to like, be like, I'm above that. It's just, I don't know. It's just not like the most interesting thing to me. I'd say Malcolm Jenkins, actually a former Eagles player.
Yeah.
Love Malcolm. Think he's great. Think it would be awesome to talk to him, especially just off the record, because, having been in the media and, just that natural barrier, just as a friend, as we're drinking whiskey and maybe talking about, chop and talking about like some stuff that went on behind the scenes in Eagles in recent years. I think that would be good. Maybe I was going to say Howie, but actually, no, not going to say it. He wouldn't agree to come anyway. I'm too critical of him. I want to say like a musician of some sort, definitely. 'Cause I really like music. I can't play or anything, but I like knowing like the stories of stuff and like this like background information that really and how certain songs are created, both in terms of production.
What's your genre of music? Like, what do you prefer?
It's a good question. Like I would say like alternative. It kind of it's broad. Like there's some post-hardcore in there. There's some like pop punk in there. Like like rock adjacent, alternative rock. Like it's all that kind of.
Do you have like a favorite band? Like your go-to?
Like I would say Blink-182, but like that's kind of like that's also like my favorite band in high school, and things have kind of shifted as your interests do throughout life. Like Coheed and Cambria is a big one. That's like on my Twitter background. I got to meet those guys. That was really cool. Circuit Survive is up there. So yeah, like I probably not one of those guys. I met them before, but let's say man, it's tough. I'm not really good at this. Let's say a musician. We'll hold that as a placeholder.
All
then
right.
we'll do probably like it could be interesting to talk to like a politician of some sort. Like that's a basic answer, but why not? We'll talk to Joe Biden. We'll throw him in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the president. Why not? Like you could ask the president so many things.
Yeah, and it could be a dead president too. You want to throw in Abraham Lincoln, somebody of historical stature. That can also be an option for your political.
Also an option. And then we'll go with wait, are they have to be alive or no?
They can be dead or alive. So
okay, dead or alive.
You want to go Ben Franklin with your Philadelphia background? I mean,
man, that would be good. I'd say my grandfather because he passed away when I was like 13, and I always wondered what it'd be like to like know him as an adult. So I'd put him in there. A sentimental answer, but definitely him in there. So I think that's 4. I didn't really say which musician yet. I will maybe get back to you. I feel like I have to pick the right one, and I can't think of which one I want at the moment. Maybe, I'll say Tom DeLonge. He's from Blink-182. I've never met him. I met Mark Hoppus, the bass player. He's an Eagles fan. He's a Rams fan too, but we won't talk about that. He's from LA. What can you do? Yeah. But he likes the Eagles. So there's my answer for you.
Yeah, is he the one who's no longer part of the band? Tom?
Yes, yeah, he kind of does his own thing. He's in Angels and Airwaves, and he was the one who basically got the Navy to confirm like his UFO video that indeed was something that was like the term isn't UFO, it's something new, but like he basically got the Navy to confirm like yes, this is an unidentified aircraft of some sort, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. But Brandon, I want to thank you again for taking the time to join me. If you enjoyed this, if you ever want to do it again, feel free to reach out to me. I plan on doing this again with RJ at some point over the summer. So if maybe we'll get both of you guys in.
Yes.
The 3 of us, and maybe we'll get stats on too. We'll see. If you guys can reconcile your differences, you can let me know if that happens. But again, thank you for joining me. And if anybody who's still watching wants to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Check out my work at bleedinggreennation.com. Here on Instagram is like at bleedinggreennsta. I'm on Instagram at Brandon Gowton. Obviously, you see my thing here on Twitter as well at Brandon Gowton at BGN_radio for the podcast Twitter account. Bleeding Green Nation podcast is where you find the podcast where I'm on there weekly, twice a week usually with the BGN radio episode and then the NFC East mixtape I do with RJ. Also regularly during the NFL season and most of the off season on the SBNation NFL show. That's
awesome. It. Yeah, and I'll edit down our conversation here and post it on podcast format and YouTube format in case anybody wants to re-listen to a shortened version of this. So, but this was fun. Thanks again, and we'll definitely do this again sometime in the near future.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Take care.